Shape of America is a political text-based RPG, which is more than likely based on the TV show House of Cards, except not with the great casting. The game opens with a news report. The news report is there to give out exposition on the game. It includes information such as the year and the current president, as well as the candidates who will replace him in the next election. These candidates include Art Gale, the Democratic candidate, who is the current vice president, and is quite obviously the good guy because he has a green tie, as well as having an interest in environmental protection and improving the education system. His opponent, Buck Gerard Jr., is clearly the bad guy, 1 because he's Cole Jr., 2 because he's from Texas, and 3 because he's got a red tie. He stands for very little really, mainly because he is the type of person who misses when the Cold War was on, because back then fear-mongering would get you into power. And also, unfortunately for him, this is before Bush got into power, so again, fear-mongering would not help him. He had to win on policies. But he's still trying, because he is quoted as for saying there are enemies all around us, even though there blatantly aren't. But you don't really learn much else. You learn about the year, that it's 1999, as well as the date. It's actually Halloween, and basically that's about it. You do learn about Pokemon, the hit new movie that's coming to cinemas. I'm not making that up. It actually caught me off guard a bit, but I think they also mentioned a Y2K bug, which would make sense considering it's about to be the end of the millennium and people are freaking out about it. Which they were actually back in the day. I don't know, I wasn't born then. After the news report ends, the game zooms out and we are introduced to our protagonist. His name is Nikola Desma, who we soon find out is a waiter working in DC. However, the game assures us that this is only temporary. However, I don't want to talk about the story anymore for fear of getting into spoilers too much, so instead I wanted to focus on the game mechanics themselves. So to start off with, I want to talk about the time system. More specifically the dates that they're set on, as it starts on October 31st but finishes sometime after Thanksgiving. I'm not too sure on the exact date. But the thing is with this time system, every day you get 3 turns and every turn will allow you to travel to a new location. And on top of that, there are certain parts of the game which force you to complete the objectives in a certain amount of time. However, most of these are fairly reasonable, giving you about 5 days to complete them. So that's not really an issue, and all in all the time system is fairly good, as it never really overwhelms you but does make you prioritise certain tasks over others. But moving on from that, I want to talk about another mechanic called the favour system. Now the favour system is a way to get characters to perform certain tasks, and it is useful as otherwise you would have had to bribe them or to do something else, like a different side quest. Now there are a few ways to build up favour with people. The main one is to just do side quests for them and hope that you gain enough favour to be used later. The second option is towards the end of the game, where one of the characters gives you an option to increase the favour by 1 with any character by using speeches. But this is pretty useless because 1 favour will literally get you nowhere in this game, as the lowest cost for favour is 5 and the highest is 20. 1 favour is literally going to get you nothing. And I know what you're thinking, you can just save up favour using this. You can't, because each one of these cost action points. And at this point in the game, when you're so far into it, you need these action points to actually finish all of the side quests. However, this mechanic isn't used too often, as the game is too short for you to build up enough favour with enough people. However, I can definitely see this being a major part in the next few installments of the game. Now I want to move back to the story and focus more on the different characters. Now at the beginning you meet a lot of the characters in a party that you're not really invited to, you just steal the invitation anyway and just go. But this is where you meet a lot of the main characters. The first important character we meet is Rachel Crown, who is a professional con artist, spiritual healer. Her main function is to teach you things that can later be used in combat. An example of this would be when you complete a side quest for her and she gives you a free rhetoric device, which is more exciting than it actually sounds like. But apart from that exception, you will actually have to pay for the others, which if you play the game like me, you'll find yourself very broke very fast trying to do it. She is also probably one of the most fleshed out characters in this game, as you'll typically find yourself having more interactions with her than most of the other characters. And on top of that, there is also hints towards her being the love interest to the main character. Another main character that I want to bring up is a man called Seth Kettle, who, unlike Rachel Crown, doesn't have any perks that stand out. However, he is known to be the big guy who everyone wants the attention of. An example of this will be at the beginning of the game. When at his party he starts to talk to you, and from then on a ton of people start approaching you and asking you to get in contact with him. One of them even gives you a job because he thinks you have good connections, not just with Seth Kettle but with literally everyone else that's famous, like the mayor, who you do end up befriending by the end of the game. And the final big character that you meet at the party is a man called Francis Reuben, who we then later find out that he is working for the FBI/CIA/whatever this version of the game's secret service is called. I don't really remember. But when you first meet him, you then find out that he's actually spying on you because you literally turned up to a party uninvited with someone else's invitation. But after that, he seems to trust you enough to put some spy software in someone's computer, which I didn't end up doing because I spent that long lying to his face. I didn't see the point in stopping then, which is actually a good way to play the game. So when you're playing and you meet him, try and see how many times you can lie to his face and get away with it. My record is 100% because I've never told the truth to him. He is literally the world's worst detective ever, because he hasn't found out anything and he trusts the worst type of people, i.e. me. But outside of them, there are a few other minor characters that I want to cover. So if you saw the screenshots, you would notice there is a Donald Trump reference, but when I first saw that, I thought it'd be ham-fisted into the game, but it wasn't. It was actually done really well because it didn't last too long, but it lasted long enough to leave an impact. And that's something I really have to congratulate the developers on, because they could have really ruined it with the whole Donald Trump thing, but they didn't. They kept it short and sweet, and I like that. But anyway, that's enough talking about an obscure character. Let's talk about two obscure characters now. Okay, so the characters I want to talk about are called Lisa Zinke and Tyler Rocker, and they don't make much of an appearance in this, mainly because when we first meet them, it's towards the end of the game when we've already been introduced to most of the characters. But when we do meet them, we do get a sense of what their personalities are. So starting with Lisa, Lisa is portrayed as the calm, rational of the two, and is the one who organised a protest that both her and Tyler are attending. And when Lisa set out to make this protest, she wanted it to be peaceful with no violence, but that soon ended when Tyler had his way. Now Tyler is portrayed as, just look at him and tell me, what does he look like? I mean, he looks like the type of guy who would try and rob a gun store with a baseball bat. And his name isn't too great either. His name's Tyler Rocker. I don't think his parents' last name is Rocker. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think he might have changed his name. But anyway, his character is that he's very impatient and doesn't agree with Lisa's way of protesting and would rather resort to violence. This is shown because later in that conversation, he decides to try and punch me, but he gets arrested before that. I don't know if he's going to play a role in the next game. I hope so, because he's quite fun to take the piss out of. But anyway, moving on from the characters, I now want to talk about the combat. Well, combat, I don't know really how to put it. I mean, it says combat here, like turn-based combat, that's what it says in the description, but really it's more of a debate than combat. But anyway, the combat in it is very enjoyable. I found myself liking it more than I expected, because at first it just seems like your generic standard turn-based combat, and it reminded me a lot of Pokemon really. It also reminded me more of Life is Strange, the not so good one, the second one, the one that didn't need to exist. But anyway, it reminded me of that because there's also a debate style combat in this, except this one's better, as you can not only take an offensive stance to this, but you can also choose to be defensive as well. And you do this by boasting. You can either boast in standard, which is 100% guaranteed to work. Then you have risky, which has a 50% chance of working. And then you have extreme, which has a 25% chance of working. It's pretty standard, although I've never actually accomplished extreme before. So yeah, that's all I really had to say about it. It's pretty standard, but it's pretty good as well. Like, it's very enjoyable. It's definitely one of the more enjoyable parts of the game. And then there's also speeches, which I'm just about to get onto, and they're not so good in my opinion. Rather, I think they're overcomplicated. I definitely like the idea of speeches, don't get me wrong, because basically what you have to do is you have to find out where the audience's political values lie, whether they're left wing, right wing, or just whatever. And it's very good as an idea, but the problem is it's not very well fleshed out in my opinion, and I have very much trouble with trying to operate it. I think it could be better, and it's definitely one of the least enjoyable parts about it, because there are certain points sometimes you have to do a speech, but sometimes you have the option of doing something else. And if I'm in that situation, the speech is the last thing I'll ever do. But then again, it's also possible that I'm just very bad at the game and I can't do it. But anyway, I want to move on to the last point that I have, which is the music and the visuals. Now, the visuals are very reminiscent of the time period, late 90s to early 2000s. They're quite good. They're not the best, like they're not AAA graphics or something. They're just, pretty decent. Like I don't really have an issue with graphics really. Like they're pretty much the last thing I really take into account when reviewing video games. Now the music is different because it's not. Now if I've edited this right, which I probably haven't, the music is what you're hearing in the background right now, and yeah, you're probably hearing nothing, but still. I wanted to talk about music because most people in the reviews in the comment section have said one of their main complaints is that the music's pretty bland, and it kind of is really. It's not very memorable, let me say that. And yeah, that's about it really. It's just not very memorable. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not particularly what I'd listen to or what I'd like. It's just average really. Now, in my conclusion, I want to say this. I want to congratulate Kuklam Studios. I want to congratulate them on making a very well made RPG, because it is very well made. I am very interested in the story. I really want to play the next few parts, and like I said, there are a few minor things that I don't like the speeches, the music's pretty bland, but those are just minor things, and quite frankly, I hope that they're changed in the next bit, especially the speeches. I mean, it might just be me. It's probably just me. If you play this game yourself and you disagree, you're probably right. Like, I'm just saying it. I'm not the smartest person on the planet. I probably got the speeches completely wrong. But that's about it. I just wanted to say, good job. You made a very interesting game, and I do look forward to playing the next parts. And yeah, that's it. Bye.